What's up, everybody? Welcome to H.J.Davis Art World. Um, I started this video and my wife called me. I put it on pause and it didn't let me get back in and start it over. So I'm literally starting this video all over again, which is cool because I can kind of not say so much what I was saying in the video prior. So this is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Boris Vallejo. And the channel was called H.J.Davis Art World. I like to kind of delve into all kind of things art, and this is one of them. And this came to mind, usually when I put videos out, it's something that comes to mind that I don't see other videos doing. And I got to jump in and say, okay, I have not seen this um, on YouTube. Maybe it's there, but I don't know if I ever seen it. And this is the conversation about Boris and Frank Frazetta. Now, first and foremost, I want to say this. If you come to my channel, thank you for your time. I do appreciate it. Time is a valuable commodity that you cannot waste. And if you're spending time watching my videos, I do appreciate it because that's time you cannot get back. And I pray, this is my honest prayer, that I'm not wasting the time that you're giving me. And you definitely will not see a lot of clickbait. You'll never see that. You'll never see me trying to push stuff for you to buy or purchase. And I'm all about, people sustaining their pockets, living their life right, and managing their money correctly. Because especially if you're in the world of collecting these art books and comic books and stuff like that, it can get out of hand. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube that I don't even want to discuss right now because it's really neither here nor there. So I appreciate the time that you're giving me. So let's dive into Boris right now. And we're going to start with the book open because I know a lot of times I have my videos going and I'm just rambling off and I'm not getting to the point. The point is this. When I was a little kid, I was in the fifth grade, I would walk to school and there was an art store on the way to school. And me being the nosy little kid that I was, it was a nice side of town we lived on too. I walked into the little art store and there was this painting to my left. I walked in and to my left, up on the wall, there was this, at the time, I'm a little kid, this painting was huge. That's Julie Bell. This painting was who? Young Boris, Julie Bell. They were into bodybuilding and stuff like that. So I seen this painting on the wall. It was a Conan painting. I'll never forget it. I never will forget it as long as I got good memory. And I used to just stare at this thing like I was amazed that someone can do that. And I'm like a little kid in the fifth grade, just looking at this thing like, wow. I remember the name, Boris. It was at the bottom. I'm looking at the picture. It was at my bottom right, and it was spelled like that, Boris. And I just always would look at that name, Boris. I wanted to remember that name. It was easy to say. I didn't know his last name for years. It was easy to say, Boris, as a little kid. I was like, wow, Boris. And nothing came out of it. It was just I just remember that painting. And as years went on, I started getting into comic books. I started appreciating drawing. I realized I really do like to draw. It's really a good comforting place for me. It relaxes me. Um, there was a dream of mine that I wanted to be an artist, but it didn't work out. So I do it as a form of love of the medium. I just love art and I appreciate art, especially when it's good art. I am not a fan of garbage. I love good art. I can spot good art from a mile away. I don't do abstracts and I don't do all kind of other stuff, but I do love good art. Boris, now I'm going to say some things that should spark a conversation in the comments. Boris, to me, is a better painter than Frank Frazetta. Yes, I said it. He is a better painter than Frank Frazetta. Now, the reason why I say this is because I pulled these books out the other day because I was looking for references and some motivation to get me going because I'm drawing some stuff. I'm working on a project with my son, and me and him got a few ideas we want to put out, some things we want to sell. So I'm looking for a little inspiration, and I pulled out some of these Boris Vallejo books and Julie Bell. Now the conversation is about Boris. We'll get into Julie Bell later on. I have four more other books of Boris that I want to showcase on my videos. This one right here will be the first one. Um, and I just want to show you why I feel Boris is better than Frank Frazetta. Don't get me wrong. Frankie Baby is my guy. That's my dude. But this is why I think Boris is better and why I think everybody talks about Frank Frazetta more than they talk about Boris. Frazetta was a guy who was in the comic book world. So Frazetta's run is basically, you know him from the Fabulous Funnies. You know him from doing all kind of different kind of funnies and comic book stuff. Frazetta's been around doing that thing. Frazetta exaggerates the human body, whereas Boris and also his wife Julie, they respect the human body and the anatomy. Not saying that Frazetta doesn't, but I'm saying that they don't overextend what the human body cannot do. So as you see in their poses, and this is Boris. If this was a Frazetta, it would be accentuated totally different. The colors would be totally different because they're two different artists. But Frazetta would have hidden some things in shadow. He would have left a whole lot up to the imagination, and his colors would have been totally different. Now, every artist has a different way they work. They work. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just a totally different way on how they do it. But a lot of people always talk about Frazetta, and they always say Boris is a copy of Frazetta. No, he is not. Boris is in his own camp and in his own arena, and he is that dude. Boris is nice. The human anatomy, the way he paints, it's flawless. You get head to toe. Now, if I was to pull out a side by side, which I think I'm gonna do when I finish off all the Boris books, I'm gonna do some side by sides of Boris and Frank Frazetta. Boris gives you head to toe. You see the feet. I don't think Frank would have did that in this picture. I think a lot of it would have been left up to your imagination. You definitely would have got no feet. You would have got some shadowing somewhere and this, that, and the other. The colors wouldn't have been so uh, complementary to the body. You know, you would have got some greens here, some colors, and Frank would have did what Frank does, which he does amazingly. But what this is Boris and Julie Bell together. Julie Bell has a softer touch with her paints, but she's such an amazing artist herself. But what I like about Boris is the fact that you get it all. You get that 4K experience. And I don't know why people feel like he is second best to Frank Frazetta. I don't think so. What I've come to realize, because Boris has a special place in my heart for that little fifth grade kid that walked up into that art store and seen that piece of work, Boris will always have a special place in my heart. And a lot of his books, I know Tarshan put out a book of fantasy artists, and I think they showcase Boris in there. And I probably would get that. It's one of the bigger ones, but I have to see if I can get it for a decent price. I'm not spending two and change on that, just to have it because Boris is in there. And the books I do have of Boris, they're not quite as big or as out there as the Frazetta books as far as size comparison, but you do get quality images and scans of his artwork. Now, when I say that you get the whole kit and caboodle with Boris, you get all of this, where Frazetta wouldn't have done that. And I think I'm speaking in defense of Boris because a lot of people that I've heard um, always say he is a carbon copy of Frazetta. No, he is not. Boris is an amazing painter, and you would be fooling yourself to think not. Just the variety. And as I said, you know, they were bodybuilders. And the only pet peeve I think a lot of people have, and I have this as well, is that you don't get that cartooniness. You don't get that over exaggeration when it comes to Boris's work. If Boris was to do that, that would have propelled him in a whole nother stratosphere as far as like fantasy artists. what you get is what I said earlier. They respect what the human anatomy can and cannot do, and you see that in their paintings. Um, it's to the point where you, it, I'm a connoisseur of just looking at certain artists, and when I say connoisseur, I appreciate the effort, and I'm gonna just say, man, I can imagine just standing or sitting and watching him paint and just look at and just trying to figure out like how does he know to do that? You know, just amazing. Like this right here is beautiful. Now I'm gonna say this again. Frazetta wouldn't have done this because I have plenty of Frazetta books as well. Frazetta wouldn't have done that. There would have been some place that would have been obscure to the eye, that would have been hidden in shadow. And I think I've seen a video where Frazetta said he gets bored quick when he does his work, so he tries to push him out a little faster. But just the quality, this is Julie Bell. And it's amazing. You got husband and wife team. But I could spot Julie Bell's work because she's a little softer with her colors on the human body. Whereas when you look at this is Julie Bell. You see how soft she is with her colors on the body? How it just lays a certain way. There's a certain level of texture that she doesn't go past. But when you look at a Boris, when you look at a Boris, you see the richness and the sharpness and the heaviness on his paints. That Julie Bell is a little softer. This is both of them together. This is actually the cover of this book right here. So, but what you see is amazing craftsmanship, amazing skills, amazing work on display. And you have to appreciate that. There's a people say Boris' work is stiff. No, that's the human anatomy. That's the way the body works. So to make it seem more action packed and movement wise, see you get movement out of this, but he's respecting and she's respecting the way the body flows. You have to accentuate the pose a little bit more. Say like, this is Julie Bell, and this is like somebody took a picture. It's just beautiful. But if you wanted to accentuate that a little bit more, stretch the anatomy a little bit more, you would have came in here, pushed this whole back in this way, brought the thigh and the buttocks up just a tad bit higher, stuck out the chest just a little bit more. So it would have been like, it would have been out this way, tucked in, dented in this way, and this would have came out. And that would have been the over exaggeration of the body. And this is pretty much cool where it is, but just to get that feel of a different kind of flow, more like a comic book flow. But they come from the world of bodybuilding, and their poses are basically that way. And I think that's the thing that people give them a minus for. And there are times I'm like, man, but I can't really do it as someone who just looks at this and go, yo, that is amazing. Because if I can do that, I would do it. Just like that. Now, as someone who read a lot of comics, I like that area and that arena of comics. I like that, that place that comics goes where they over accentuate the body. And sometimes I don't like it because there's a lot of poses that I see. And I'm like, the human body can't do that. But what Frazetta did was he accentuated it a little bit more. And there's another art book I want to show where the guy respects the human anatomy as well. I think Frazetta is one of those rare cases. That's what makes him stand out a little bit more than other artists. See here, Frazetta would have probably bubbled her out, gave her the juicy booty. It probably wouldn't have been so much definition on the back muscles, but because they come from that arena of bodybuilding, they understand where muscles go and how it works. And Frazetta would have did a whole bunch of other stuff here and gave her the juicy booty, the cellulite, and this, that, and everything else. And it just still would have looked good. So you can't fuss with Frazetta's skill. But I'm just doing these videos for Boris, because I think people need to realize that this man should go down. If there is a Hall of Fame for fantasy artists, he should be front runner. Front runner. It should be no conversation. I don't want to hear about, oh, Frazetta, Frazetta. Frazetta has a longer tenure because he did comic books. And like I said, that arena is more populated than just your average fantasy art fan. Boris, man, it's just beautiful. I can stare at his stuff all day and just appreciate it. Now, like I said, Boris would have gave character features and expressions on the horse, and he would have drew it in a way where it wouldn't have accentuated the page the way Boris is accentuating the page. Like, he's giving respect to both images here, which is not easy to do. And you could look at the anatomy and the figure, which is just beautiful. And he knew how to paint a woman. And he gives you can actually see like it's like flesh. And I gotta keep saying it, man. Don't excuse me for my sniffling. I don't know, I think my nose is just acting up right now. Don't misunderstand the difference in art styles. But I will not put this video out and say that Boris is a copy of Frazetta. I don't think so. I think people want to stand on that and make that impression, but it's not true. And I even think that, I think there was a video with Boris's granddaughter. Um, and the question came up about Boris, and it's like she was about to get into like Boris and her granddad, and I think the guy who was doing the interview kind of veered away from that because really, I don't think he want to step in that well. This is beautiful, and this is Julie Bell. I think this is Julie Bell. Is it? No, both of these are Boris. Oh, excuse me. Well, that's Julie Bell though. That's his wife. But man, come on, man. Tell me you can't appreciate this. Now, and I'm going back and forth with Frazetta and Boris on like what I think Frazetta would do, because I look at Frazetta work and I know he would have juicy bootied this up. It would have been cellulite, it would have been thick, and he liked thick women. I ain't mad at you. And he would have juicied it out. He probably would have had her butt up in the air a little bit more. Probably would have had the dragon extended out a little bit more, coming up like going down for a dive. Her butt would have been up in the air. And he would have definitely left the rest up to imagination as far as like the back legs, the hind legs, and stuff like that. But you get your far shot and you get your close-up shot, and I don't see how people come up with that, saying that Frazetta is a better artist. I can't see it. I mean, put it in the comments if you think, and tell me why you think Frazetta is better than Boris. And I guarantee you, if you're being honest, you're going to say what I've already said. Frazetta is more cartoony. He accentuates the body in a cartoony fashion that gives you that stylized appreciation of his artwork. I'm going to say it that way. You get a stylized appreciation of his artwork because he does it that way. And his women, are Frazetta women. And his women are not fit like this. His women are built, like, they built like stallions. But let's get through this book. Excuse me for sniffling so much. I don't know. All of a sudden, my nose is just wanting to act up. And there's a realism to it. A lot of people don't like realism. I don't know if it's realism to the point where you got fine hairlines and all. I just think that the man and his wife are just amazing artists. Like, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. LeBron James, it's cool. See, now when you get into, okay, I'm glad I got to this page. When you get into like poses like that, he doesn't stylize the pose. He gives you what the body can actually do in a sense of motion in real life. Whereas Frazetta would have probably, you know, elongated this leg a little bit more or made it a little bit more flamboyant in a sense. He would have accentuated areas of the character that it would have made it look like, you know, that stylized form of his art, which is cool. Excuse me, guys. Now, I want to say this. Kung Fu poses are some of the hardest poses to do and make it look cool. That's just my opinion. That's the Charles Barkley here. Some more of the bronze. Now we get into more of the bodybuilding poses. And I think that's a lot of people's pet peeve when it comes to Boris and his wife, Julie. They do these bodybuilding poses and I get it. It could be a little, but you can't deny the quality of this man's art. I'm kind of going a little fast because I want to get through this particular book for you guys. We're 20 something minutes in, so that's a Frazetta ship. That's kind of like a Frazetta style. That's cool. It's a pretty thick book. And see, respecting the human anatomy and how it works. Frazetta would have been more stylized with this picture. Like, remember the one with Tarzan jumping down and the lion is coming towards the woman and how Tarzan looked coming down and stuff like that. He's more stylized with his art than, say, Boris. Boris is going to respect the way the human anatomy works. I'm going to flip through a couple of more pages of this. But you got to love it, man. You got to love it. If you're studying, if you're in that world of painting, you got to understand what it's like. Okay, now here, we get a little bit of, sorry for the sniffling, guys. We get a little bit of that Conan, Edgar Rice Burroughs cover stuff. Now, he's tapping in to a Frazetta-esque style. He's doing that on purpose. He is not trying to copy Frazetta for the sake of copying Frazetta. He's doing that respecting what came before him probably, or just a minute, guys. I had to clear my nose. But he's doing that pretty much to pay homage to Frazetta and how Frazetta would have done it. And even still, you see he took that plunge. And this is probably younger in his career, and he's following a Frazetta-esque style of painting. That's cool. But you see what he's doing. He's doing what Frazetta would have normally probably would have did. He's leaving the rest up to imagination. You're not seeing any feet. You get your little haze and shadow. You see stuff in the shadows coming out. So he could do that, but that's not who Boris is. 79. Now that is beautiful. And see, Frazetta would have gave characteristics to the horse's face. And I don't know if it would have been such a subdued pose. It would have probably been some movement in that if Frazetta was doing it. And like I said, this is an opportunity for guys to comment on what I'm saying as far as between the two artists. And I'm only mentioning them two artists right now because those are the ones that stand out who are prominent to me as far as the genre of fantasy art is concerned. Julie Bell, cool stuff. I'm sniffling again. I really got to blow my nose, so I need to speed this up. 86. Wow, some really good stuff here, man. Okay. Might as well let you guys see Yeah. Sometimes it's good to shut your mouth and just let the art do the speaking. One more second, guys. Hold on. Get that shakiness up. Thank God for the pause button. I had to blow my nose. I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, I'm stuffy. But kind of want you to see and appreciate what this talented artists can do, husband and wife. But this is right now. I'm just showcasing Boris. Uh, he just had a way with when you see a Boris work, and that's another thing too. If someone can see your work, I was discussing this with my son. If someone can see your work and go, "That's that person," you've accomplished what you need to accomplish. There are artists, like for instance, another favorite artist of mine, Dave Stevens. Dave Stevens didn't put out a lot of work. His life was cut short due to cancer. And Dave is one of my favorite artists. Hands down, I think he was with the brush, amazing. But I was talking to my son about I couldn't distinguish Dave Stevens from another well-known artist in that field of drawing because he didn't put out a lot. Like I said, his life was taken short. He was going too soon. But if I was to see a Dave Stevens piece, it's not like someone else couldn't do that. So he didn't have the opportunity to solidify his art style and form where when people would see it, say, oh, that's Dave Stevens. Like if I was to see a Mark Schultz piece, it would be kind of hard to just pinpoint and say Mark Stevens, but there's a uh, um, Mark Schultz. I'm sorry, Mark Schultz work. It would, but you kind of could tell there's a certain way that Mark Schultz draws that kind of leans towards a Frazetta style uh, ink style as if it was like a paint. So you kind of could tell if Mark Schultz is doing it, and it's fine. But when you have someone like a Boris, someone like a Frank Frazetta, and you see their oils, you know who they are, and that's the glory of getting yourself exposed in that world. Oh wow! Let me see a comic page by Boris. Now even in this, Boris just has that thing that he just respects the human body so well that it, this kind of reminds me of like a Wally Wood a little bit. But even in that, I didn't even know that he did some comic book pages. That's cool to know. See, and I had this book for years. It goes to show you I haven't been looking at it. There's also the positioning of your where you're going to put your characters at and how you're going to lay it out on the canvas. So that's another thing. See now, Boris, and I'm going to show you something before I end this video. Um, this right here, I can use this as a comic book page. That is spot on. $6 million man, Boris. um, really cool. This is a sketch for a rough cover, as it says. Boris. Man, that's cool. But even in this, he's respecting the human anatomy, whereas maybe another artist would have twisted it up a little bit more, or cheated or shortcut it. So when you're doing comics, you got to get them out every month. You're gonna take a lot of shortcuts. There's not a lot of artists that can get away with that. John Byrne can get away with it. John Buscema can get away with it. Sal Buscema can get away with it. Neil Adams can get away with it. You know, there's a couple of artists that can really get away with that. Every month. So it's not an easy thing to do, and that should be a respected forum for artists to just appreciate the fact that these comic book artists are putting stuff out every month. But, coming to the end of the book. Wow, amazing. Can't get enough of this guy's paints, man. This is beautiful. Now, if I were to repaint this over, which I'm probably gonna start doing some stuff like that, um, I would lean more towards how Frazetta would do it. I see the only takeaway I put on Boris is that